Illustrator provides a way to take a two-dimensional object and render it into three-dimensional space. You can create great artwork with this feature and have a lot of fun doing it as well. Let's take a look at how this works. So I'm beginning this video with the billiards.ai file already open on my computer. And we're going to explore some of the 3D effects. So we're going to start with something really basic. I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and I'm just going to shift-click to draw a perfect circle on my artboard. And let's go ahead and fill this with a color. I'm going to go ahead and use maybe this reddish purplish color. And then with this selected, I'm going to go to the Effect menu under 3D, and you can see that I have three different options to choose from. So the first one that I'm going to choose is the Extrude and Bevel. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that option. And what this allows me to do is extrude this shape. So for example, if I turn the preview on, you can see that it's taking that simple circle that I drew and extruding it in the 3D space. If I increase the depth, it's going to make this object longer. And then up here, if I click and drag on this cube, you'll see that I can spin this at different angles in 3D space. So if I want to see this side of it or another angle, I can easily do that. We'll go ahead and just leave that as is. You can choose to leave the cap on for a solid appearance or turn the cap off for a hollow appearance. So now as you're spinning this, you will see kind of the inside or see through it. So I'm going to keep the cap on. And if you wanted to, you could choose a bevel for this object. So I'll choose, say, like a classic bevel. And now as I spin this, we should see that it now has like a beveled edge on it. And you can increase the height of that bevel. Almost looks a little bit like a crayon right now. You can also control the bevel extent out or the bevel extent in. So you can experiment with those options as well. And then the surface, you could choose between a wireframe, which is kind of cool. You can do no shading, just kind of a solid silhouette of an object, diffuse shading, or plastic shading, which gives it a little bit more realism. So that is the extrude and bevel option. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another circle here. We can leave it filled with the same color. Another option we have is Effect 3D and choose Rotate. And basically this is simply designed to be able to rotate this object. So it allows you to kind of map it to 3D space, if you will, with perspective and so on and so forth. So you can tweak the perspective here as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then we're going to look at another option. And so I'm going to draw another circle. And I think this time I'll go ahead and fill this with white. There we go. And what I need to do for this last 3D effect is I need only half of the shape that I want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and click and hold on the eraser tool, and I'm going to choose the scissors tool. And I'm going to click on the top anchor point and the bottom anchor point to split it. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete half of it. So now I'm left with half of a shape, as you can see here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Effect menu and choose 3D, and this time I'm going to choose Revolve. And this is going to allow me to revolve it on whichever edge I choose. Now since I kept the right half of the shape, I'm going to revolve it on the left edge. So if I turn my preview on, we can see that we now have this nice three-dimensional sphere that I can use to essentially do whatever I want with. So again, we have the same options here. I can put a cap on or not. I can choose to rotate this in different angles. And I can also choose the surface, wireframe, no shading, diffuse shading, and plastic shading. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it set to plastic shading. Now, the important thing I want you to understand, how do we go back and edit any of these shapes? Well, that's where the Appearance panel is going to come into play again. So if I open up my Appearance panel with an object selected, right here is the effect that we applied. If I turn the visibility off, it's just going to show me that original shape. And if I turn the visibility on, it's going to show me the new shape. If I change colors, it's going to update automatically. So it's easy enough to change and adjust later on. And if you wanted to tweak the settings, go to the Appearance panel and double click on this FX button, and now you're right back into the 3D Revolve options. You do have to turn the preview on each time because of the rendering involved. Then you can make adjustments any way you wish. Now, one of the cool things that happens with these 3D effects is that you have a lot of control. And one of the things we can do is we can map artwork to these shapes. In order to do that, we need to make the artwork that we want to map to the shape a symbol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Symbols panel, and you can see that I actually already have the number 8 in here, but maybe we'll do the number 9. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag to draw a shape, and I want to fill this one with yellow. There we go. And I'll go ahead and send that to the back. And now we can adjust that because this is going to be for the striped pool ball or billiard ball. That looks pretty good. And maybe I'll make it a little bit longer just to give me a little bit more flexibility. So now we can take this object, open up the Symbols panel, and I'm just going to drag that and drop that in there. And I'm going to call this number 9. There we go. Click OK, and now we have a symbol for that object. Now, how do we use those symbols? Well, if I click on this shape and I go to my Appearance panel, I can double click on this FX button. And inside of this dialog box, I can turn the preview back on. We have this Map Art button. And if I click on that, you'll see in the symbol drop-down menu, the only thing that's available are the symbols that I've created. So for example, if I choose the 8 ball, you'll notice that in this preview here, you can see that there's only one surface on this object, but depending on the 3D object you create, you may have more than one surface. And on each surface, you have a gray area, which is showing you the object that's going to be in the shadow, basically the side of the object that's in shadow. So you can see that would be the back of the sphere. And then the non-gray area is the visible area. So you can see part of the 8 showing up already. So I'm going to move this into position. And we can see that we now have this artwork mapped to that sphere. Now it looks a little big, so I can scale this down, just holding down the Shift key. And then we can reposition this. I'm trying to get the sizing correct. So you might want to do a little bit of math, as you're doing this so you get the proportions correct. And then we can go ahead and click OK. And then we can click OK again. And we can now see that we have that shape mapped to the billiard ball. Now this is the 8 ball, so I'm going to go to the Swatches panel and change this to black. That way it looks the way it's supposed to. And you know what I can do? I'm going to click on this object, and then I'm going to Option or Alt click to make a copy. And I'm going to change the color of this ball to white. And then we'll go to the Appearance panel, double click on the FX button, turn on Preview, click on Map Art, and instead of the number 8, I'm going to choose number 9. And then again, I can scale this object down by holding down the Shift key. And if I reposition this, now we can see how this is mapped to the shape. And if we want to spin it in a different direction, maybe get a better angle on this, we can go ahead and click OK. And now we have the sphere with the 9 on it. Now you can adjust the shading if you want to. If you go back into the FX button, you can adjust the shading. You can see like right now the surface is the plastic shading, and that's fine. You can also click on More Options, and this allows you to add additional lighting sources. So you can see this is kind of gray, and you need a little bit of that to give it some depth, but what I can do is I can click on the New Light button, and that'll add another light source. So I can drag this and kind of change how the shading is being applied. I can drag this one. That way it's not so gray. Maybe we'll add another one. You got to be careful. If you add too many lighting sources, then it starts to look a little fake. But you have a lot of flexibility. So we can go ahead and click OK. And there are our symbols that are completely editable, thanks in part to the Appearance panel. So as you can see, with a little bit of imagination, you can create virtually any shape in 3D space that you can think of. Enjoy and have fun.